little window over here. We're off. This is, she says, turning away from the camera. This is episode 12, where we build worlds, we populate them with people, we give the people little jobs, and then we draw them little houses and little animals to tend to. We are the gods and goddesses of our imagination. Today we actually have a special guest. It is Jack CULL, and everyone loves Jack. Jack, say hi.
Hi, hello. Yes, I'm now. I've totally crashed your stream, and I've decided to become a permanent plague or permanent resident.
Permanent resident indeed. So, just to explain, we're drawing currently the Castle Keeper's Guide for Trollord Games. It is a series of 12 maps, and we're doing them all on one canvas. Why? Because why the hell not? It's going to look freaking glorious. And what we've decided to do is, each Monday, maybe every Monday, but certainly on a regular Monday occurrence, we are going to entice Jack CULL to be with us, and he and I are just going to bullshit. We're going to talk about things. Maybe we'll even make it a little bit of a movie Monday. We'll talk about things we've been watching. We'll just shoot the shit together. Maybe we'll talk about the map. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Jack, and that's the intent that I'm going for.
No, nobody needs to know anything about me. Nobody cares.
I'm pretty sure they do. In fact, everyone has already made it very, very, very clear that as long as they've got you, they don't need me. And if you actually came up with a Twitch stream, they would all flood over there. That's been made very evident, young man.
Don't even know, because all of the Twitch streamers are either artists such as yourself or some of your other friends that you have here on social medias, or they're all gamers. And I have the artistic talent of a potato, and I don't stream gaming, so.
Well, you say that, and I think you're probably using conventional art in that sort of sense. But you're a writer. You're a writer, right?
True. I don't know how that would necessarily translate over to Twitch. That would be interesting. I guess if there was more of like a brainstorming session, that would be kind of weird. I don't know how that would.
Yeah, I wonder if you do get any writers over here on Twitch or streaming, or because you can't just stream what you're writing.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have NDA flags going off on the wazoo, or even if it's your own IP, someone else might try to steal it, or it just is literally just you writing, and people are bored.
Right?
You're just going back and editing what you wrote in the last 2 pages. Boring.
And what if you weren't editing? What if you were actually writing? Can you imagine how difficult that would be? An interruption to the creative flow?
Yeah, I think it would be, especially since I don't know. I obviously don't know how other writers do have their method, and I know you've done some RPG writing in the past yourself. I don't even know how you do your method. I like to shut down and just have music playing, and I especially since I tend to focus on creating characters and NPCs and that type of thing. I'm listening to music. I'm looking up photographs and art for inspiration. And I'm creating something in my head, this thing that I want to get out on page. Having distraction of a chat, or wondering if I've got my Streamlabs working, or all that. That would be so distracting. It would take me out of the element personally.
No, I hear you. I think the only way maybe I could do it is not actually be writing necessarily, but to read something that I have written out loud to folks.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? Like one of the, Patrick Stewart sitting there going, and let people respond to that, as almost a work in progress, and say, so where should I take this next? Type of deal, or what do you think?
Right. Yeah, that could be a thing, discussing. Oh, hello, Alex, and hello, GL. How you guys doing?
Hey, two of my favorite people. Hey, guys. We've got Jack with us.
I see when I waved my hand, the green screen took my hand away. So it's like I waved. It looked like I had like a stump just moving.
So, now we've got a couple of people with us, we could actually start the process here. For starters, Jack, thanks so much for joining us today. Honestly, I really dig it. A little bit of a different pace for the stream. It will be fun, I think, a little bit of a change. We'll just do it regularly and we'll just hang out. So before I get into this, there's a lot of people that obviously have met you and they love you. I joke about it, but it is a case of everyone loves Jack. But like, how many of us actually know Jack? And the funny thing is, so I saw some questions on Facebook earlier today. It's like this little sort of each day you answer a question type of thing. And some of them, like even right from the beginning, I was like, even I don't know how Jack would answer that. So if it's okay with you, Jack, I literally want to ask you these questions and we'll just talk about it. And if the conversation goes off on a tangent and we end up talking about something that originated from this, that's cool. I think there's 20 odd questions, and if we don't do them all today, okay, we'll just pick up on it next week. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that works for me, but I have a counter on that.
Okay.
It can't just be about me. I think there has to obviously be a back and forth conversation in this. I'm sure everybody here would love to know what your answers would be on a lot of these questions.
Well, let's do it that way. I'll ask a question, and we'll just talk about it. We'll both talk about what our response would be, and then that way people can get to know us both a little bit better.
I think that's great. Green Loontoon has given me the already a name, and I'm digging it. Jack Mandu.
Jack Mandu. Okay, well that just means that I'm going to have to update your nameplate for next Monday's stream now.
Oh Jesus. Okay.
Hey, HDL's fault. All right. So first question.
Yeah.
Favorite board game. Favorite board game. Now I'm going to be honest. I'm going to set this one up for everyone, okay, including the folks that watch the videos afterwards. Jack and I actually own quite a few board games. We're known for not being board gamers because I tend to talk about so many other types of games like war games or tabletop. But Jack and I actually own so many board games that we've still got a bunch in shrink that we've not actually managed to play. And we both agree that we don't get to play board games as much as we would like. So we are actually board gamers as well on anything else. So with that said, Jack, we probably haven't even thought about board games that much in the year that we're in. What's your favorite board game? Do you have one?
I do indeed have one, and it is one that, funnily enough, I was thinking about board games like a week ago, maybe. When, I don't remember the context. And I actually was going through my entire history of board games. So, when I was younger, my family, we didn't. My family weren't like the gamers that we know of today, the gamers that we are, that we love to hang out with, our friends. They weren't like war gamers. They weren't like big, like, like, I don't want to belittle anybody that likes regular board games, quote unquote regular board games like Parcheesi or Monopoly or what have you. But those are like, let's just call them casual board gamers. And then there's like serious board gamers that play more intense things, that are kind of more in like the nerd sphere, shall we say. My family, when I grew up, was more of the casual players. They were we're playing Sorry, we're playing Trouble, we're playing the Game of Life, those types of board games. And then it wasn't until when I was growing up and I started meeting different people and coming into contact with other games that my understanding of what board games were and what they could be kind of developed. And I realized I don't like those kind of board games at all. So the favorite that I had when I was younger, obviously, is clearly different than what it is now. And what it is now is probably the longest, most complex game that I've ever played, I think. But it's Arkham Horror, actually.
Yeah.
I think that one, hands down, because it's, obviously we're really into role playing and Call of Cthulhu, and it's literally Call of Cthulhu, the board game. You're an investigator. You got to find clues. You're running around town trying to stop horrors. Yeah, it's almost like a a very quick version of it, because you don't have weeks and weeks and months to play a role-playing game. But no, it's good. I love the fact that it captures that essence of the role-playing game and the mythos, but it's able to condense it down into a pretty awesome, kick-ass, complicated board game.
Now, how much of that though is the way that we used to play it? Because we would play almost like a campaign, and would allow our guys to level up and stuff.
Oh yeah, 100%. Us when you and I used to play it pretty regularly, and it was just the two of us, and we did it campaign style. And if an investigator died in a previous run, they were done. And every time we played, it was another horror. And if a horror was defeated, we would discard it. And if a horror wasn't defeated, and all the investigators died, that horror got reshuffled into the deck, so to speak. It was definitely our house rules in that regard that won it, because actually our early experiences with the game was us playing it with our group of friends, and it took too long because people thought too quickly, or they didn't think very quickly, and it took them time to try to plan everything out. And then people would do things, nobody would really quite work together. It was almost kind of like, I'm going to do my own thing, try to do this. And you and I have such a good rapport. Well, I certainly hope so. But you and I have such a good rapport when we play games such as that it was, we knew what each other were doing. We would discuss it. We would have multiple characters in order to, have a fleshed out team of investigators. And yeah.
I think that's a great answer. And Alex Vixen, yeah. So I listened to Shoggoth on the Roof, and I can't actually say the name without it bringing a smile to my face. But I listened to it last Friday, and last Friday ended up being like a little bit of a bitch of a day, the day job. But I just had it playing in the background. It's quite long too, and I loved it. It was fantastic, and I've still got it on my favorites, because I'm gonna re-listen to it. I think a few times. It was awesome. Thank you for sharing that with me. I really appreciate it. So Jack, I'm going to be really honest with you. I completely forgot about Arkham Horror. I completely forgot about it.
That's all right.
Which is unusual, because it occupies a considerable amount of shelf space over there. And no, I mean, I actually really dug Arkham Horror too, but I will say I think it was the way that we played it. It does have this massive setup time and this massive breakdown time. Especially with all of the expansions and everything, which is the only knock that I would give it. It's like it's almost an event to play this game. It's like you have to set time up. You can't just say, "Hey, we've got 4 hours, let's play Arkham," because you're going to spend 2 hours of that just setting the bloody thing up. That's the only thing I would say against it.
Yeah, I want to say that by the end there, before we kind of stopped playing it. By the end, I think I was able to get it set up in about 20 minutes. But the fact that it takes you 20 minutes to set up a freaking board game, and that's with you knowing exactly what you're doing, and you know where all the bits go. I mean, people don't want to, spend amount of time that it would normally take them to play a game to set up a game that they're going to play for the next 4 to 5 hours.
No, 100%. I think that game has definitely got to be up there, and I think it is. It's a Cthulhu aspect of it. It's Cthulhu, but with the characters and the research and the elder beings, and it's possible to win, but it's very easy to lose. But if you play smart, and it's like Call of Cthulhu, the real game in a way. It's like if you play smart, things could go your way. But if you play stupid, they definitely will not. And I kind of like that aspect of it. Now, am I misremembering? There's no dice in that one?
Crap. No. There's dice. There's dice. Holy smokes! It's been so long.
Like I can't remember how you fight a Bayaki, for example. I can't remember.
I think you get a number of dice equal to what you've had your skill on. So like if you have like if you set your brawling to 4, I think that means you get 4 dice. and then you need to get X amount of successes in order.
Right,
to
it's the whole success thing, failure thing.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I mean, hell, it's been how many? What, 5 years?
It's been a long time.
It's been a really long time since we've played.
That is one game that I actually played at the was it the Black Lab? I sat down at the Black Lab with a beer and like a little chili bowl, and someone had it all set out, and I couldn't believe what I was playing. I just loved it. That's what originally got me involved, and they had expansions and stuff.
The Lucky Lab, yes.
Lucky Lab. Haven't been there in a while either.
Yeah, and the yeah.
I'm gonna let you answer, by the way, GL's question.
Unfortunately, sadly, I have to admit that I do not have a lightsaber. I have many times over the years gone to those sites where you can custom build your own lightsaber handle, and by the time I get to the end, it's one of those things where it's like, great, you've designed it, you've got all these cool things, so you just got to fork over this $750 and here you go. And I'm like, okay, just so everybody knows, I'm super frugal. If it's not something that I need for something in my life, I don't typically get it, not usually. So it's one of those things where I go for practicality and I go for realism. So I'm sitting here going, do I really want to spend $750 on this lightsaber hilt that, yes, I will love it, I'll treasure it to the day I die. I just spent all this time custom doing it, even though I've never encountered one from this company before. I've never held it, so I don't know actually how cheap it feels. Like, that would be my worst nightmare, is if I spend a bunch of money on something and I get it and it feels like crap. If it's like the metal they use isn't quality, or if the plastic that they use isn't like some hardened, like, professional stuff, and they're just one of those scam places, even though everybody loves them. But I have pretty high standards with quality of things. So I end up a dozen times or more, I've gotten all the way to the end where it's the, please enter your credit card information, and I go, no, I don't think I'm going to do this right now. That's a hell of a lot of money that I can't just be, throwing away, because, it's just a little item that's just going to sit on my desk, and that's it. I don't have a practical use for this thing in my life. So no, I never have, sadly. I know it's kind of a bit of a disgrace, and I don't want to just get like, the plastic ones, like, because you can get plastic, props and replicas from any game store or toy store, what have you. But that's, talk about, feeling cheap. I'm literally just flopping around a piece of plastic at that point. I don't know.
No, if you're gonna do it, you've got to do something that's at least quality.
Right.
Like you say, got to have a little bit of heft to it. Right. Feel like it's a quality item, that it's substantial.
Right. That's another reason why I've never had an interest in going to like the Disney's the Galaxy's Edge. I do want to go to Galaxy's Edge, but I wouldn't want to go into the lightsaber building experience, because A, it's super expensive, but then B, there's actually a finite amount of customization options. If I'm going to do something, I want the full, like, I want to be able to mix and match everything.
So you're not interested in having like a replica of Darth Vader's lightsaber, or Luke Skywalker? Like, you want yours.
No. If I do indeed, I would actually love to have a replica, a prop replica of either, any of the ones from the films, whether it be, Kenobi or Vader or Anakin or Luke or Rey or Kylo, or I didn't really like the prequel sabers, to tell you the truth. I think what threw me was the fact that they were too pristine, and the fact that they had that big red button on it that actually like killed the vibe of lightsabers for me. I hate that they added those. Only to the prequels they added those. It was, in my opinion, horrible. I liked the other ones felt, which is weird because it's it's a fantasy sci-fi thing, but it almost felt like it was like hand forged, like by like a blacksmith or something, or like somebody. The other ones felt like they were like off a machine, conveyor belt. So I don't know. That was my problem with the prequels, anyways. Everything was too clean.
No, 100%. I mean, even and I'm not like a Star Wars nerd. I enjoyed the films, but that was the problem with the prequels. I was kind of excited about the concept of the prequels when they were going to do it. It's like, hell yeah, let's do this thing. But everything was super clean. Like, the armor was super clean. It wasn't even used. The spaceships were all super clean. It's like the robots were super clean. Nothing actually even looked dusty.
Right.
Like, so nothing looked real.
And the fact that then 20 years later, everything gets real dusty, because by the time the prequels end and the original trilogy begins, everything's something real grungy and real dirty.
Well, and if you look at like arms and armor and guns and stuff that are used, or even just military equipment that's used, it could just be day to day. I'm not talking about in warfare necessarily. It's got some wear. Just guys climbing up on the side of it, adds wear to the paint. And like flying around with little meteorites or whatever pinging off it is going to add some chipping. And there was none of that. It's like a little droid going through town. It's going to get a little bit of dust. It's going to get a little bit of sand build up or something. And there was no grime. And for me, even though at the time I did understand what was going on, because it really was with the stormtroopers. Mm-hmm. They were like mother effing pristine, and I was like, this just looks too clean. Like these guys have literally just walked out of the costume shop,
Right. And you could argue that when it was the clone troopers in the second film when they first showed up, that you could argue, well, yeah, they literally just came out of the cloning facility on Kamino, the planet. Okay, sure, so they're really pristine. But then in the subsequent film, the follow-up film, where it's like the Clone Wars have been going on for like 5 years, they're still just as pretty, and everything is still just as clean. And it's like, wait a minute,
there was no sign of use,
Yeah, exactly. It's just everything was too perfect,
I never got as grandiose looking at the lightsabers, but that's interesting. I think if I ever watched the prequels again, I would look for that. Although I do seem to remember a big red button, oddly.
Yeah. Brian McWhorter has joined the house.
Hey, Brian, hello. Brian, we are doing a special hour-and-a-half session with Jack, the Hitman CULL. And we're just shooting the shit. I'm asking him a question, and we're talking about it, and we're seeing where the question goes. We started talking about board games, and now we're talking about the prequels, Star Wars. It's Get to Know Jack Hour. That's what this is.
Yeah, and Alex Vixen, you have a great point. The Marines, all of the gear that the Marines used in Aliens, that shit looked used. It had markings on it, had paint on it. It looked like they had been using that. That was the same gear that they had for years. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Like, as if a Marine has got a helmet. That's his helmet, right? His or her helmet. And they're not only sort of wearing it and moving around, but they're doing their training in it, and it's with them, like you say, for years. They're tossing it down on the ground or in a locker. It looks worn. It doesn't have to look scruffy as fuck. It's not like it has to be dented and shit, but it looks owned and used. And yeah, the prequels never got that down.
That's actually one of the things I loved about the making of Aliens, to tell you the truth. Bit of a tangent. James Cameron actually wanted the actors playing the Marines to feel like they were a squad, so they actually underwent quote unquote like basic training together, and they were literally given their the props of their gear, and it was like, and they were told, customize it your way.
Nice.
And so all of that customization is purely for them, and that's why they felt like they were like a cohesive squad, is because they had spent so much time together as a unit. The only one that was a little bit off was actually Michael Biehn as Hicks. That was originally supposed to be what's his name? He plays Dexter's dad in the show. Remmer? What's his name? Remmer. Hold on, I'm looking him up.
I was going to say, we could call him Dexter's dad.
Yeah, Dexter's dad. So Dexter's dad, he was also in The Warriors, and he's in a bunch of stuff. He was the original Corporal Hicks, and something happened. I don't know if it was scheduling or if it was a financial thing or creative differences. I don't know, but he dropped out, and Michael Biehn came in to replace him. Well, I think he just had to. He got that actor's gear, and he didn't have as much time to connect with everybody, and that's why his character almost like in the scenes when like all of the other Marines are like jibbing and jabbing, he's kind of off to the side, just kind of like listening in, or he doesn't really have much emotion. So they kind of thank you, James Remar. Thank you. I was close with the last name. But yeah, that was but I think they built it into the lore of the movie, like the backstory that he was like a little bit more recent of a transfer to the unit, and so he hadn't spent years with everybody. He'd only maybe been there a couple of months, and so that's why he mostly hung out with with the sergeant and the XOs and stuff while the rest of the Marines were down, because he was a anyways totally irrelevant, but
fun fact
Samsonite, I was way off. Yeah, exactly, totally right.
So, question 2 then. Question 2.
All of that. Wait, you didn't answer. What's your board game?
What? My favorite.
Yeah. What is your favorite board game?
Yeah, honestly. So if I had to sort of say, if we're all sitting there and we're like, hey, let's play a board game, where my head is going to start going to, is actually the co-op games. Mm-hmm. The fact that co-op games have now become a thing is actually, really started to appeal to me. Like, I don't want to play the versus games anymore. And for me, even though it's a much, much, much simpler game, I actually think it's the Pandemics.
Oh, nice.
I kind of like the simplicity of the Pandemics. I like the mechanics of the Pandemics. I like how, the group has got to sit there and really sort of hash things out. But it literally, the setup time is 5 minutes, breakdown time 5 minutes. You can play it in 2 hours, and you can get a nice quick game in, but it's a cerebral game still, and I like that quite a bit, as long as you can at least have a choice of the character you're playing. True.
Yeah, if you do the I think it's just the standard rules is you just have a role assigned to you, and everybody is randomly. It's like, wow, some of those roles are not good, and you're pretty much, if you're playing on any higher difficulty rather than the beginning level, you're toast.
And what I like about that game too is, like, even when you lose, if you lose, it feels like you could win, and it almost instills within you one more game. Let's try it again. We could do it this time.
We could have got that this time. I took a couple of missteps, or we just had a bad luck of the draw. But next time we could do it. Let's do it. Let's set it up again.
Right, and I don't think I've ever played a game that has that sense. I will give an honorable mention, though, and I actually don't know the name of the game, so it's going to seem weird. But when we went to Dragonflight and we played the Battlestar Galactica game.
Oh yeah, that's just Battlestar Galactica. Yeah.
I am actually surprised I've got to this point in my life and I don't own it and the expansions. I want that game and I want to play that again, because I had so much fun with it. The one time that I played, it's like I must have it again.
Which is actually kind of funny. Yeah, it's Battlestar Galactica, the board game, which is funny because that new popular game that's been going around on Twitch and on like streaming, gamers that stream, is that a game Among Us. And that's basically Battlestar Galactica, the board game. When you
really?
Play it,
I was wondering what Among Us is. I have no idea what it is.
So if you have a full lobby, which I think is 10 players, 10 players in a lobby, 2 people are imposters, and the other 8 are crew members. And what it is everybody, the ship is like having issues, the spaceship, and you have to like, the crew members have to basically get the ship ready. So each player has a whole big set of tasks they have to do, and they have to go around and fix the ship. And if they get all the tasks done, if every player gets it done, then the ship's fixed and the players win. While the 2 imposters have to, it's kind of like The Thing. They need to kill off one by one each of the other players, but they can't get caught doing it, because if a body is found, whoever finds it, like, the players can report it, and then an emergency meeting comes up, and then everybody votes. Like they try to say, well, where were you? Well, the body was found here. Were you running with anybody? Were you by yourself? Did you see anything? What's going on? And everybody then votes secretly if they want to eject somebody off the spaceship. And so how it's supposed to be is you play on your own with just your audio, and then you have these town meetings with everybody has their audio on, and you're basically like in a Discord server. I mean, the game actually says that's how you're supposed to play, and anybody who doesn't, typically they get ejected right away because the other players are like, you're cheating. What are you doing? But yeah, and then it's if the imposters kill everybody, they win, and I think if they outnumber the crew members, they win. And then if the crew members eject everybody who is an imposter, they win. And the imposters have to go around. They don't have tasks. They have to go around the spaceship pretending to do tasks. And so if you're new to the game, you don't know what the tasks are. So you won't know, like, okay, so where do I go to make it look like I'm doing a task? But once you know the game enough, I've watched enough streamers to know, you go over to this fuse box and you stand there for like 10 seconds and then you can run away. And then but then if you find somebody on their own and you don't think there's anybody around, you can kill them and then run away. Jump into the vents that nobody else can do but imposters. So it's basically Battlestar, where you're like the Cylon players are secretly trying to undermine everything that's going on, but without getting caught. Because in the board game, if you're caught that you're a Cylon, you can get ejected off off of Galactica.
That is literally the last thing in the world I was imagining Among Us was. But it sounds awesome. That sounds really good. So Brian was saying, I played a really good Aliens game at North Texas RPG. Now the original game looks like it came from a cereal box.
Oh, okay.
But the set they were using was all custom made with minis and 3D printed set pieces.
Oh, nice.
So, was that like a minis game, Brian? Was that with the terrain and it was like a skirmish game? How did that play out? So, Jack, because we really actually started to talk about this. Favorite board game mechanic? We literally started to touch upon these things right now.
Board game mechanic. It's such a weird thing. Rolling dice. I mean, I don't know. That's such
Well, if you think about it, I mean, we mentioned pandemic, and I like the fact that you insert these bad things in amongst the deck, right? And you can reduce the deck, but still the bad things are in there. That's actually kind of a cool mechanic. And the fact that, you're talking right now about the computer game version, and Alex Fiction just chimed in too. It's like the crew members, if they finish all of their tasks, win. Now, these guys over here have got to stop them from doing that, but they've also got to feign that they're doing tasks. That's a mechanic, and that kind of works really well. And there was a little bit of that in the Battlestar Galactica. I think the Battlestar Galactica and the pandemic card stacking, I like those mechanics myself.
I think one that I like is like the deck builder style of game, where Ascension has that, and Night. What was the vampire one that we did? Nightfall has that, and Star Realms has that, where you start the game and you have a very finite amount of cards in your hand. Typically, it's going to be like an attack card, a money card, and like an energy card, something like that. And each round, like your little tiny stack of cards, and every round you get like 4 or 5 cards in your hand out of your little stack of maybe, let's say, 7. And every time it's your turn, you get to play those cards to buy things that are on the board. And then everything that you've bought and everything you've used now goes to your discard pile. And then the instant you can't draw any more cards out of your deck, you shuffle your discard pile, and that's your new deck. And basically the deck building thing. I'm actually a really big fan of that type of thing. The deck building style and the ever cycling deck, and trying to build something that works with what you have already, that type of thing. Having cards that play off of each other, and in the randomness of them coming out, on the board, different elements coming on the board that you hope nobody else buys because that'll work in your deck really well, kind of a thing.
Yeah, all right. I've always felt a little bit out of control in games like that. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing type of thing.
Right.
Like, I don't think I've ever played a deck building game where really actually felt like I was in control of my own destiny. I've always felt like it's a little random in a way.
Right. That makes sense.
All right, and you guys and girls watching, by the way, have a famous mechanic. Yeah, famous mechanic. Feel free to let us know. All right, this is a little bit of a change. Favorite gaming convention. Now, we've been to a few now over the last few years. Brian McWoods mentioned North Texas RPG, but what's your favorite gaming convention? And now, don't worry, the convention organizers don't watch this show. They don't even watch the reruns. We can be honest.
I think my well, see, and this is different. Okay, so hang on. Wow. Okay.
It's a tough question, I think, actually.
It is a tough question for sure.
Like, in my personal opinion, and I'm not going to sort of say my choice, but it's like every convention we've gone to has felt different for different reasons, but all good. So picking a favorite is kind of hard.
It is definitely picking, because Total Con is amazing, Gary Con is amazing, Gamehole Con is amazing, North Texas is amazing. It would have won. Gamehole Con would have won. But sadly, because the hotel doesn't have a restaurant or a bar or a communal, or even a freaking coffee shop, a communal area that can do it, it doesn't win because of that. So I am actually going to give it to GaryCon, I think. I think GaryCon wins. I don't know though. Total Con was pretty freaking sweet.
Well, no, and there's a commonality though too, isn't there? Total Con, North Texas, Gary Con, they've all got a bar restaurant area, and I think you're touching upon something. Gaming, at least to me, is a very social event. Even if it's just hanging around with your little group, but there's a whole bunch of geeks and nerds around you. And it's like, people have got their dice, they've got their miniatures, they're playing games, and you know that you're amongst your peeps. Right. And having that social environment, I think, allows you to sit down, relax, and be surrounded by that gaming ambience, that nerddom, and you just hear the excitement and the buzzing, and and you see your friends or people that are in the industry that you don't know. It's all happening around you, and it's almost like you feel caressed by it. And Gamehole Con does not have that, and I think it's a big takeaway.
Yeah, it's like the convention itself is awesome, but it's missing that, almost like that after hours sense. I know gaming goes on into the night until like 11 o'clock at night, but it's the fact that, if you're just like wanting, like, if you're gonna have a free period, so for the next 4 hours you want to sit down at either a restaurant or a bar or a cafe or something, they don't have that. Yeah, they have like a kind of like a food area kind of, but it's like, it's because it's a convention center, and that's where obviously that hosts it. It kind of takes away from it a little bit. It's like the only drawback to Gamehole, in my opinion, because I love it would have won if it would have had something like that. So
Gia, what's this convention that you run? And you've probably told me in the past and I've forgotten, but I'm a horrible human being. Like, so you say you run a convention every year, and that you've been to a lot of conventions, but they're not gaming conventions. What are the conventions that you run and or go to? And Alex Fiction, only gaming con she's went to was a local one called DracCon. Was it any good? Did you enjoy it at least? For me, my favorite. So let me see. So Gamehole Con, I agree. North Texas RPG, I love the intimacy of it quite a bit. One of the worst, by the way, and this is probably a future question, one of the worst for me, and this is probably sacrilege, and I'll get banned on Twitch or something for this, Gen Con. I actually do not enjoy the Gen Con experience. You're like talking about the intimacy of North Texas and then going to 60,000 people over here. I know people get off on that. It's like, yeah, I was one of those in the 60,000. It's like, I like being around gamers, but not 60,000 freaking gamers. But Well, what would my favorite be? I've got to pick Garrycon. I got to pick Garrycon as well. And I think I'm picking Garrycon because I love the lodge layout of it all. It mean the fact that it felt like a ski lodge, the fact that everything felt like homely. It was like North Texas, but bigger and more attractive. And there was so much energy going on, and the lodge area itself was just freaking fantastic. I think I would have to put Garrycon up there. I think I would have to.
Nice. So comic conventions then, GL. Okay, cool.
Alex Vixen went every year for 20 years.
To DracCon? Nice.
Yeah. And Brian, yeah, you're right. I mean, I think everyone should experience Gen Con at least once. But it's too big for me. And I think you could get away with big if it felt small, which I know is kind of weird. I mean, Portland, okay, I'm going to pick it. Portland is actually a pretty big area. There are a lot of people that live in Portland, but Portland feels small. Portland feels like lots of little neighborhoods jammed together, and people live that way here. You go to your local breakfast bar, you go to, you know, your local actual bar. It's like, and you don't tend to venture too much further, and if you do, it's like you go into another town. And so Portland feels small. And North Texas definitely is a little on the smaller side, but then you get that intimacy. Garrycon to me has that intimacy. And I think if I'm going to be fair, TotalCon had a level of that. I mean, TotalCon did feel homely, family orientated. Gen Con definitely freaking does not. It's ridiculous. GL says, mine is simply RPG Con. I host it at my work on a Saturday. Okay, invite only. 4 games on average. Hey man, that's fantastic. Personalized badges for players and GMs. That's cool, man. That's really cool. Alright. Well, we kind of touched upon this. It's like the favorite card game.
Oh no, that's a completely different question. What are you talking about?
Alright, so it seems like you have an opinion, sir. Favorite card game, go.
Well, and that's one of those things where I haven't probably played a card game in a while. I mean, when I was, years ago, I used to play, Magic the Gathering, obviously. But I gotta say, and I haven't, I never had anybody, any of my friends that really played it other than like 2 people, maybe in my group of friends. And the last time I played it was, oh god, dating myself, was probably like 25 years ago. But Legend of the Five Rings, that was one that I really dug. Probably my favorite, but I don't think it was necessarily the card game, because there was actually a lot about the mechanics that I didn't like. But I think it was the lore and the IP, basically. It was the story and what was going on that was what I really dug. So like to this day, I still in my head consider it to be one of my favorite card games, even though, like I said, mechanics, some of them real sucked. They were real bad. Like, I did not like it. Like, it would be one of those things where you'd go into a battle, and if one side lost, you'd literally lose basically half of the cards on the table. It was kind of like that Napoleonic game we played at that one convention, where I lost one unit, and because of that, I lost another unit, and because of that, this entire side was lost. And it was like, wait, because I lost one battle, literally 100 pieces are coming off the board? How did that just happen? It's kind of like that. Wasn't a big fan of that, but I think what came of it. So maybe that's kind of a weird way to answer the question. I like the card game, but not really for the card game.
But if it's your favorite, those are your reasons for it. I think that's cool. That's cool. I haven't actually played myself. I don't know about you guys and girls out there. Like, what sort of card games have you played? And Brian, my word, so you can't say Hearts or something stupid like that. But like, what are your favorites? For me, I mean, I've not played Honestly, I don't think I've played any card games, and I think the closest I've ever got has actually been Ascension.
Okay.
So I think that would have to be my answer.
Nice.
Yeah, Brian McWords are spades. I knew you were going to say something like that.
If I was gonna play a card game where I actually liked a lot of the mechanics of it though, and actually was entertaining to play, I would actually say, funnily enough, the Shadowrun card game that they came out to accompany the.
Was it Crossfire or something?
No, not Crossfire. It was just called Shadowrun, the like the collectible card game or the trading card game that came out in 97, maybe. No, it was you would actually. It was actually pretty cool. I thought you'd actually have like your stable of runners that you would have equipment that you'd equip on them, and then every turn if you wanted to, you could have them do one of the runs that was out on the table, and each one of them had different sets of skills, and you'd have different equipment. And when you'd go on a run, you'd find out what the different challenges were. It was actually I thought it was really well done how they were able to translate the role playing game into a card game. It was pretty fun. It was pretty fun.
Brian is like down with the Magic the Gathering back in the 90s and the first Star Wars trading card game.
Yeah, the one by Decipher, right? If we're talking that, I played the crap out of that game back in the day. Oh no, he's saying the Star Wars game was trash. Wait a minute, hold on. Oh, I'm confused now because they said Star Wars.
Well, he said the first Star Wars trading card game. So maybe there was a trading card game.
I don't know which one he's referring to.
We actually tend to not really know much about what Brian is referring to, but I think he prefers it that way. Yeah, he's got to look it up. Apparently, there might have been two different games, one of which was really cool and one of which was not.
Yeah, there was one that Wizards of the Coast came out with in 2002 that, in my opinion, was crap, personally. If you liked it, cool, great on you. I thought it sucked. But the one before that, the company Decipher put out, it was the Decipher. It was the Star Wars CCG that came out in '95. That's when it first started. That one was cool. Yeah, the starship that didn't have ships. I bet you, Brian. I bet you it was the Decipher one from '95 because when it first came out, it didn't have ships. I think it had planets. Like I think you had Tatooine, and like I think you had like the Death Star in like the first set, but you didn't have ships to like go up there. So it was like okay, and like the beginning deck, like it was Dark Side. It was only Dark Side Light Side. It was a 2-player game, but I think like it was like Vader was like the best card in the starter set, and like Luke was the other one. Even though it's funny, the Vader from that beginning set was real crap because then like the Vader that came out in the second one was like the better one. He was so good. That was a great game. I played the crap out of that game. Holy scamoli. And I was right. The Shadowrun trading card game came out in '97. It's pretty good. It won the Origins Awards for best card game of 1997. And best graphic representation in a card game.
So where did it go?
I don't know actually. How long did it stick around before it went kaput?
Like what makes the best game of the year suddenly disappear?
Yeah, disappear. I don't know. Being that it was FASA was still running it at the time. I don't know. They probably
maybe it was FASA related.
Maybe they ran it into the ground. Yeah, when did FASA go belly up? Well, they went defunct in 2001. Yeah, I don't know actually how long the card game lasted. I didn't know many people that played it, and not that I knew many people back then, but.
Is it a case that Magic the Gathering kind of just like armbarred everything else out of existence?
It could have been, because yeah, around that time, yeah, Magic was, but at the time though, no, there was a little bit more competition though in the card game realm, because that's when like Legend of the Five Rings was going, at that time, I want to say, and people were churning out card games because it was kind of a new thing. I think the Star Wars game was going out at that time. I don't know. I don't know why it didn't go. But then again, I mean, that's kind of one of those things where I would ask, well, why didn't Shadowrun ever make it as big as some of these other role playing games? You know, like I mean, one could argue that Vampire and Werewolf got bigger than Shadowrun, and I'm sitting here going like, how is that possible? But
I think that might be something we need to do a little bit of research on and talk about on the future one, because I would actually be really interested about that too.
Yeah.
All right. So, favorite RPG character archetype. Is it archetype or archetype? Archetype.
Archetype. Yeah, archetype.
Favorite RPG character archetype.
So, Brian, I played Dragon Dice as well. Ooh, that game was not good. I wanted to love it, but it was terrible. Favorite archetype? I don't know. I
know it's a question, right?
I like the rogue, scoundrel, swashbucklery type, who's kind of he's charming and will totally steal from you, but has your back and will always be there for you if you're in a scrap. So a Han Solo?
Yeah, I was gonna say, so Han Solo.
Which is funny because if you ever asked me like who's your favorite character in Star Wars, I never would say Han Solo, but that's apparently I like playing Han Solo characters. That's like my favorite.
What about like what would the Boba Fett's and the likes of your Mandalorians be as an archetype?
Oh, as an archetype. Well, Boba Fett is just a straight up. I mean, it's in kind of like his title of who he is. He's a mercenary bounty hunter. His personal for Boba Fett specifically, his personal feelings don't come into it. Except when he was younger, he was very emotional. Obviously, coming off of the fact that his father was killed by the Jedi, and he was an angry youth raised by bounty hunters. But mercenary for hire with no personal stake in something. That would be more kind of him. So a mercenary, ruthless mercenary. The Mandalorian, though, I mean, if you think about it, that's almost like how they started him out to be. He was supposed to be the emotionless mercenary, gun for hire. But clearly, with the child in the show, Baby Yoda, as the fans have called him, or her, or it, he's kind of the reformed. He's not a heartless mercenary anymore. He's the protector. He's the guardian.
Right.
And I know that that's a very popular archetype with characters. Like I see that GL's got either like a cavalier or knight.
Yeah, GL. Tell us your favorite cavalier or knight. Give us like a little bit of like insight into one of your personal favorites. And I was going to say cavalier or knight, but I'm actually not sure that's the type of character that really gets me going. For me, it's almost, I want to say the normal person, the normal character who has become a badass assassin and like a little bit dark because of it. I like characters who have got a slice of dark that can just put on the mask and just go to town. I think that's the type of character I like. But I don't even know what archetype that would be, other than assassin.
John Wick.
John Wick's an example. Yeah, I mean, he wants to do good. I mean, but it's almost like he's involved in a world that won't let him, just be. He definitely. But also, is it Arya? Game of Thrones?
Arya.
Right.
Brian's actually got it in the chat. Yeah, Arya Stark.
Yeah, Arya Stark. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like every time she actually offs someone, it's like I'm rooting for her, and sometimes she does it with glee, like with satisfaction, and it's like, oh, she's a little bit broken now. But I like that. I like someone being that little bit broken, and it's like they might want to be something else, but they can't, and it's so that inner almost is a little bit of inner turmoil, going on there, and I love that.
I'm gonna real quick. Hold on. So, I heard that. Oh, where did that come from? I'll be right back. 1 moment.
All right, Jack. pours his own fucking drink. Okay, I see how it is. I see how it is. While Jack's doing that, by the way, you can see where we're at with this. This is really, really taking shape. My objective tonight is to actually just try and get as many of the roofs done as possible. I probably won't finish them. I'm going to try and get... I don't even think I'll necessarily finish the roofs on the west side of the river here, but let's see how many we can get done. And at this scale, it's really just texturing, right? So we're texturing the roofs. And then, so I think tomorrow night, we're going to go to the east side of the river and do those. Then we've got to finish off all of the ground textures, and that's going to be Wednesday night. We might end up spending the rest of the week on this particular map, but I think I predicted that last time we streamed, right? Like last Thursday. I think I said there were 3 or 4 more sessions in this. I'd have to go back and watch the video. So, and then that puts us next week starting the tower cutaway. So it's like it's a simple little village, but there's so much work that goes into it. It's ridiculous. GL, mine is my first character I ever made. Bayard Silverblade spawned 4 generations of family members and world setting. Hey, the fact that when you get a character or something that spawns a world setting and something that you keep playing in, I think that's honestly one of the best things freaking ever. I had a similar experience going back to 86, 88, and actually started in a Shogun game that was based upon the book The Keep. And in that Shogun game, one of the samurai lets the demon out of the keep because he doesn't want a peasant telling him what to do. And that ended the game, but it spawned an entire world. It's like, okay, now we're going to play in the world that the demon has left behind. So let's go a full 100, 1,000 years in the future and play in the same world has now had this cataclysmic event occur. And we still play in that world to this day. So I get you. I actually feel you on that one. Princess Streggers in the house. Good to see you, young lady. We actually do have Jack with us tonight. He will be back here shortly. He was just getting a little drinky poo. And we are doing a little Q&A, Princess. You'll have to watch the beginning of the video to sort of catch up a little bit. But it's been a fun one. We're talking games and stuff. We've been talking about favourite games, favourite card games. We were just talking about your favourite RPG archetypes that you like. And we've been kind of all over the place a little bit about what people like. And GL, one of my beginning characters was actually I was saying is famous. She's not famous at all, but like she always holds a little bit of a soft spot in my heart. It was a character that was evil, and yeah, she had like this shadow. She had this inner shadow, and I kind of like that. I like the characters that have that inner darkness to them. Probably says a lot about me. Alright, so let's hit some of the question. We're going, by the way, time check. We're probably going to stream for about another 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that.
Has time already flown that fast?
It's gone fast. This has been a blast. This has been a blast. We've got 30 questions, by the way, so we can definitely, I think, do like 6 to 8 questions per Jack time and just get to know each other a little bit more. Jack, you answered this one already online, but no one would have actually seen this from you. Your favorite miniatures line.
Oh, yes. Hi, Princess. How are you? Favorite miniatures line. Yes, I did see that because Evil Bunny has been actually posting some stuff. I know while we own probably the most for tabletop miniatures, not wargaming, but for tabletop miniatures, I think we own more Reaper than anything. My favorite are the Rackham miniatures. And I know Rackham themselves I don't think exists anymore, and I want to say it's Catawell now. I think that's the miniature line that owns them now, that like picked up the I don't know if they got the molds off it or what, but and I think now you can only find that because they've reissued them the Confrontation board game, which used the Rackham miniatures, but Rackham for sure were my favorite.
Yeah, and I could see that with you. Yeah, and I know that you've got quite a few Rackham and you really love them.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome. I I know that they did more than just their werewolves, and I don't even actually, because I actually didn't know the world of like the confrontation game, so I don't know like what the mythos behind them all are. But the wolf guys that Rackham did are by far my favorite designs for. Oh, thank you, Princess. My Star Wars background.
And it's really solid too. It's crystal clear. It is like so crystal clear.
Yeah, when quarantine happened, Star Wars, the official Star Wars website, released a whole bunch of high res backgrounds for Zoom meetings specifically. They were like, here's a bunch of really high quality sets and images and stuff. I could change this up to be like Cloud City or Hoth if I wanted to, but I always like this one. This is from the new trilogy. This is like, I think, the Resistance base. I don't know. I think so. But anyways, but yes, Rackham. Their Wolfmen miniatures are by far my favorite. Because and I'm a bit biased because I like Wolfmen characters, not necessarily werewolves. I actually like characters that are a little bit more in control. Obviously, the whole werewolf mythos is people with this inner darkness or this other thing, and it changes them into another being, and so in these stories that they're literally changing into a beast. But I always thought that was fine, but I like just anthropomorphic wolf people. I like anthropomorphic animal people in general, but wolf people always kind of two thumbs up for me. The Wolfen, yeah, thank you. There you go. I too have some of them painted up. It's pretty good.
And don't you have a bag that's unpainted somewhere though too?
I do have a bag of unpainted because the guy that we were getting to professionally paint them for us, because you obviously were doing your own painting on the side, and it was kind of like, well, I want to get these done, but I don't want you to bother you. He charged well for them because he was a professional painter and this was his living. But it was one of those things where I'm like, I have like 20 minis here, and if each one's gonna be $100, maybe I'll do like one at a time over the course of a couple years,
If only you knew someone that painted miniatures, huh?
Well, no, I do. I just don't want to waste her time. Ooh, Kensai miniatures. I know those are.
Oh, Kensai awesome. Miniatures are stout. They're nice. Yeah, they're really good miniatures.
Princess, I'm sure you'll be in luck as far as The Mandalorian goes. Disney loves money, and if they think they can get money by releasing it on Blu-ray and having people buy the physical copy of it, they will.
Yeah,
they will.
That's gonna happen. That's gonna happen.
It's really good, by the way. All
right, another question? Are we down for another question?
Oh, yes, and in quick answer to Princess on her second question, how do I feel about skinwalkers? The little I know about skinwalkers specifically, I've dug them, but I don't know. I haven't done enough looking into them specifically. That's more Native American mythology. Is that right? And yes, I can kind of have a side conversation with that. We can go.
But that's what I love about these questions. It's spawning off all of these other topics of conversation and stuff. This is good. I like this. I like this format. It's working good. All right. Well, shit. We actually just mentioned this.
What's that?
Favorite Disney character. Ooh. And everyone's invited to answer, okay? Favorite Disney character.
Now, I'm assuming we're going to go with, traditional Disney. We're not going to go, well, Star Wars is now technically part of Disney. Marvel is now technically part of Disney. I'm assuming we're going to go with the, original...
Let's go with original. Let's go with original Disney.
Original Disney style.
Yeah, because if you start pulling in Marvel and stuff, that's a whole different line of question. And maybe we'll do that in a future stream. We'll actually say favorite Star Wars character, favorite, Marvel character. But right now, favorite traditional Disney character.
Can I have two?
Yes, I think we could all have two.
Because they're so different from each other. So I have Robin Hood from Robin Hood.
All right.
and I have Stitch because
Stitch is outstanding.
he's Stitch.
Stitch is outstanding. Yeah.
A little Elvis loving monster of chaos. I love him.
Yeah, Stitch is gotta be up there. So why Robin Hood?
So Robin Hood was one of my early in life favorite Disney movies of all time. Would probably still be in my top 5 to this day. And he just was, and this kind of goes back to what's my favorite RPG archetype. This is he was a kind of a Han Solo. Obviously, the whole steal from the rich, give to the poor. That's kind of like been it's kind of been something with Robin Hood like forever. But I think that's it. I think it's because he's the charming scoundrel. He's the rogue with a heart of gold. He's he will rob you, but he's really trying to do it for good. And he's got this band of people that put their trust in him, and he's trying to protect. Not like protect like I'm a knight way, but he's doing what he has to do in order to do good. That's another archetype. Again, spinning off the character that will do whatever it takes, whatever is needed in order to achieve what they believe in. That type of character is what I love. So think of the operative from Serenity. He was the primary antagonist of that film, but if you think about it, he believed in something and was willing to do whatever it took in order to see that thing to completion. Regardless of what it meant for him, he was willing to sacrifice who he was and what would come of him. Like he would die for that cause because he believed in it so much. I like that type of character. He's willing to go to a dark place if it means like the light can continue over here. Like he's willing that worthy sacrifice. So I kind of like that. So that being said, Robin Hood's obviously not going to go to a dark place for that, but he fought for what he believed in, and he was the scoundrel rogue who would steal from the rich and give to the poor. Yeah, so I think that's just that thing. That's that.
Oh, look at Brian's choice, which is a good damn choice.
Was that his full name? That's fantastic. I didn't know that was his full name. That's great. And I'm with you, Strega. Crabs are yummy. I'm just saying. Alyssa's not a fan of seafood. And
you eat crab? I didn't know you ate crab.
Yeah, sushi uses a lot of crab.
I suppose, yeah. Okay, so when it's buried in sushi, yeah, I get. Well, okay, but I've never seen you crack open a crab.
Oh no, yeah, I'm actually not a fan of the places where you crack it open yourself. It's messy and be a pain in the ass to kind of get to, and then C, I also don't like it. I don't want them to bring a cow to my table and I chop it up to get some of my beef. It's like I don't want the animal bits there.
Right. I'm sorry, Brian. I think we just literally ate your choice, and that is my apology. It's not personal.
Under the sea.
You know who I liked? This is going back, but from The Rescuers, the little dragonfly.
Yeah. Now,
and I forget his name now.
I don't mean to
do it. But he powered the boat.
I don't mean to do an actually, but is The Rescuers Disney?
Oh, actually, is The Rescuers Disney?
And great film, by the way. And that was one of those ones where even the sequel was not bad. The Rescuers Down Under. Yes, it is indeed Disney. Disney's The Rescuers. Yes.
Princess had a question for you.
Your three-way choice. Let's see. Ooh, Jasmine. Okay, cool. Tiana. Okay, which it's funny. If I'm not mistaken, if I'm correct, Tiana is the princess from The Princess and the Frog, right? I actually haven't seen that film. And then Ariel. Ariel is that she's a go-to. I mean, that's the story that they did with Little Mermaid is brilliant in my opinion. And I love Jasmine too because she was. I mean, come on, she was a badass. She was kicking ass and taking names. Those are all great choices. But yeah, if Tiana is indeed the one from Princess and the Frog, I'm actually not familiar with that one. I actually have not seen that film.
All right, now, Alex Vixen, I want to know what makes killing a crab. What is the special step? How do you kill a crab properly? Aside from with a 38. Answers in the chat, please.
I'm gonna go with a heel stomp. Darkwing Duck. Yeah, sadly, I know of Darkwing Duck GM more by reputation more than anything, but Darkwing Duck was around in a time in my life where I didn't have television, so I know of Darkwing Duck, but I don't know Darkwing Duck. I've heard it's very entertaining, and so you picking Darkwing Duck is, part of me is like, oh yeah, no, totally. I've heard Darkwing Duck is awesome. I have no. What's Gizmo Duck? Gizmo Duck? Who's Gizmo Duck?
You know, one of my favorite characters is actually, but before he became like, actually, this may not be Disney. This may be like someone else. This may be Warner's. But the Dancing Frog, is that Disney?
Hello, my baby. Hello, my
yes.
honey. Hello, my ragtime.
That.
Yeah. I think that was Warner Brothers.
I think that's Warner's. Yes, because my sister and I watched that when I was like early teens, and my sister wasn't even in her teens yet, and we laughed our asses off at that. We just cracked up, and it's got this huge sentimentality to me right now.
Yeah, by Chuck Jones, he did the Merry Medleys, which was Warner Brothers. Yeah. Okay, all right, Green Man. I will look up. I'll look up Darkwing Duck, and if Darkwing Duck is indeed Disney, then I'm assuming it's on Disney Plus. Which we're subscribed to, so that's something that I could totally watch.
GL scratch all of my picks. What?
Gargoyles. I only ever saw like the first Gargoyles. Like, wasn't it like a series? Like, it was a series, right? Or was it a movie? If it was a movie, I saw it. If it was a series with like an extra long pilot, then that's the only one I saw.
I thought Gargoyles was a series. I thought it was, and I never watched any of it because I kind of hit a point in my life where I wasn't watching that type of stuff.
All of the Gargoyles. Okay. 2 seasons. Wow. Really? Okay. So yeah, I saw the pilot then. It was cool, but I don't remember. Followed by the Goliath Chronicles. Wasn't that the name of the main gargoyle? Nice. Okay, so Princess and the Frog is more of a dark fantasy. Okay, cool. Nice.
All right. I think we have time for another question here while I'm drawing roofs. See, this is a great format for me doing something very repetitious, hanging out with Jack, getting to know him a little bit better. Oh, actually, well, shit. Apparently, this list of questions later on does a favorite Marvel character, does a favorite DC. So we're actually going to get to cover those.
Perfect.
But this is an interesting question. And it's really open, okay? It's really open. Because there's different types of this. Favorite music to game to. Now that's open, right? You could be in a computer game. You could be in a tabletop game. But favorite music... And there's different types of games. But favorite music to game to. I think that's actually a little bit of a tough one. Jack, what's your take on that?
Well, and that's one of those things where it's definitely not a straight up answer. Because depending on the game, kind of like what you're talking about, depends on what you listen to. If I'm playing a tabletop role-playing game, I don't want any music playing unless it's something that the GM has curated specifically for a scene. Maybe it's combat music for when combat kicks off, or maybe it's they want to play some ditty because you've entered the tavern and there's something playing and he wants to play it for you, or they want to play it for you. Cool, but that's because that's the GM's choice. But if it's not that, then I don't want any music in gaming. If I'm playing a role-playing game on like a computer or something, or some sort of immersive experience, like an Assassin's Creed or whatever, again, I don't want music unless it's what they've provided in the game. If when I'm playing Skyrim, I love when I come over the mountain and it's got like a Lord of the Rings, like da 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 da. I'm looking at the thing because that's what the game, like they were like the designers of the game were like, and at this point this musical cue will happen, and there you go. Or if you go into a tavern and they have it, we're like, okay, now the bard starts singing at the thing. It's like, okay, they decided that as part of the gaming experience, and I want to be immersed in that. If I'm playing a game that is like a brain off style game, almost like a turn based, like I'm playing XCOM. I'm a really big fan of the XCOM game. If I'm playing that, there's no real soundtrack to be heard of, and so I'll just play just my own personal playlist in the background, because who cares? So I either want what was curated specifically by the people that created it, or I want nothing, or I want just generic playlist of my liking.
No, and I think that makes total sense. It's like when I'm running like Call of Cthulhu, I have sound effects and everything going, but we don't want a musical score playing.
Right.
It just doesn't seem appropriate. Princess Strega actually had a question for you. She asks, what is your favorite RPG?
And then she clarified with specifically tabletop RPG.
Right. Good question, Princess. Thank you.
Well, let's see. That's kind of an interesting answer because there's two. My favorite to run is Shadowrun. And my favorite to play, if I'm going to go with ultimate favorite to play, it has to be, and it's going to be a multi-tier answer, is D&D-ish, because I started playing fantasy tabletop role-playing games, and it was AD&D back in the day. That's what I learned to play role-playing games with. And so I fell in love, and the fantasy worlds is what I love to play in. I love fantasy settings. In people that are like, the stereotypical fantasy settings are overdone, like Tolkien style elves and Tolkien style dwarves. I'm like, yay, it's overdone. I love it. I don't care. Give me the cliches and all the fantasy elements. I'm okay with that. But as time went on, it's almost like the system itself didn't matter. It's like it would just be kind of that D&D feel, that fantasy feel. So it was AD&D back in the day. It was 3rd edition, 3.5, Pathfinder. Nowadays it's 5th edition. And so it's whatever game allows me to do that with those types of rules, that almost like the D20-ish rules, I'm okay with. I do understand that, like, some of the earlier stuff, like, from a couple years ago with 3rd edition and 3.5 and Pathfinder, those started turning into pretty intense, like, as we used to joke at the gaming table, math finder, because it required so much calculations just to figure out, what did I roll? I don't know. It's a 16 on the die, but let me take 8 minutes while I do this calculus formula, and okay, I got a 32.5 pi over c. Does that hit? I don't know. But regardless of that, I love how 5th edition has simplified things. I really dig that kind of thing. I haven't played Pathfinder 2nd edition at all, just because I ended up getting burned by Pathfinder down the line, because it started off great and then it became Mathfinder. So I haven't played 2nd edition at all, but I'm really digging 5th edition at the moment. And so that type, that kind of D20 style, I would say either Shadowrun or that D20 style, kind of float around that. There's a couple of different games that are in that kind of orbit, shall we say.
Talking of which, quite a few people in the chat are talking about the West End game Star Wars as their favorite.
Which I have. You know what? I don't think it's on my shelf in here. I think it's on our shelf out there. It's probably from the angle that you see her at, everybody, you can't see her because you guys can see the map that's just to
Yeah,
the
they can't
right of
they
her
can't
head.
see the same angle you're seeing.
Yeah, the angle that I'm seeing, I can see the shelf that our West End Games Star Wars is on. I used to play with my cousins. I used to play the West End Games Star Wars a lot, and it was pretty good. It was pretty good. It was pretty entertaining. It's one of those ones where I don't know if it's aged well because I haven't played it in, I don't know, 20 years. So, yeah, I know. GURPS. Fuck
Laughing
GURPS, man.
GURPS.
I tried GURPS once, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna like this. I was like, I think I'm done.
And we own a lot of GURPS too.
We do own a lot of GURPS. We at least have a half a dozen books. Oh man. But yeah, but I did have a lot of fun with the West End Games Star Wars for sure. I actually, funnily enough, and I even asked for it for a Christmas gift one year. But I actually have the new Fantasy Flight Star Wars game, which I know is kind of problematic because it has its own custom dice with its own custom symbols that I don't know what they mean yet because I actually haven't read the rules. But I've heard the new Star Wars, new, it's been out for 5-10 years. The Fantasy Flight Star Wars game is pretty good. I've heard it's pretty damn good.
He wants me to run that for the group, and I don't want to do it because I don't know enough Star Wars. And I feel like if you're going to run a Star Wars game, you better know your shit. And so he argues with me.
For the record, so everybody knows where my standpoint is on this, I almost want someone who doesn't know Star Wars because I don't want someone who has a stick up their ass running a Star Wars game. I want someone who's creating new stories, who's creating stuff that Star Wars people never would have thought of. Holy shit, like, what just happened? I never would have expected that in a Star Wars game. Yeah, motherfucker, you didn't. Entertainment. Hell yes. If I knew what was coming, yeah, I would play with someone who... Oh, yeah, see, there you go. Yeah, see, I answered you already. As you were typing it, I was answering your question. I have not tried it yet. I haven't. We have a couple of books, and I have a set of the dice, but I haven't played it yet.
Alex, by the way, I did, and I responded. I actually put it in chat. Very informative and very humane, and much I gave a heart.
Oh yeah, railroading in RPGs is terrible. I mean, I understand that sometimes the GM wants you to stay on track for whatever campaign or story they're doing. I think that the balance is letting the players be able to do whatever they want, but at the same time, kind of loosely railroading them.
And
It's
you
more
know,
of like
I think
it's kind
this
of a corralling.
I think this, Jack, could actually be a future stream that we do together. We could talk about our GMing techniques, and I think railroading, or the railroading, but it doesn't feel like railroading. It could be like one of those subject matters. We could talk shop and just talk about GMing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So Princess Stregger, you just gave us an idea.
Yeah, Brian McWhirter, sand railing. Yes, sand
Ah,
railing.
I didn't even know it was a phrase. All
That's
right.
a great term. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And people that are hearing me for the first time, I have heard recordings of my voice. I know it's obnoxious. My apologies. I'm teasing.
You're not obnoxious. No one is saying you're obnoxious.
I am.
Brian might be. I mean, but that's Brian. All right. So Princess Stregger says, "How do you feel about underwater campaigns and adventures?"
I'm glad you said that out loud because when I first read it, I was like, "What do I think about underwear?"
Yeah. So Jack, what do you feel about underwear? Princess Stregger wants to know, but in a non-creepy way.
I approve. Underwear is all the way.
No, this is where Jack goes, I go commando, baby.
Yeah, sadly, I can't go commando. That's just not my style. Underwater campaigns, adventures, I've only had one. And it was actually Alyssa that was running it. And I liked it. I like settings that force you to have different types of equipment and gear, and make you think about environmental situations you wouldn't normally think about. Yeah. I ran a game that was set in a desert setting. Sadly, we had some players with us when I was running that allowed that kind of broke the system and made it so environmental hazards weren't really a thing. But I also, not only do I think it was the player themselves, but it also was the system. I think we were using Pathfinder at the time, and Pathfinder is kind of a very high magic style of thing. Going back to systems I also like games. I also like role-playing games that have it where, yes, there's magic, but I don't want it to be too high of magic. Like, I'm not a fan of the 0 level spell create water. You could just create water infinitely, because I was trying to create a game in a setting where it was a desert and water was very important, almost like Dune, like, you needed a still suit and all that kind of thing. And the wizard came in and was like, well, I have a 0 level spell where I can create like 60 gallons of water like that. So water. And I was like, well, what the hell, man?
That's one of those things, though, where it's like magic system meets the world I'm trying to create, or the environment that I'm trying to subject my players to. And it's like, that's a cool story, bro, but yeah, like, create water, create food. It's like, well, fuck. How does anyone starve in this world? That's why I prefer the lower magic things myself. And Alex Vixen apparently is all over Star Wars. And Alex, maybe you and I need to chat offline, and you can make me feel good about running a Star Wars game. And if I do, I'll stream it.
I like it. You'll never meet any of the iconic characters unless you piss off the Empire so much they send Vader in. But that's not going to happen. So, to the Outer Rim. the unexplored territories, exactly.
And Princess says, how do you feel about industrial fantasy in tabletop RPG?
Industrial fantasy. I don't know if I know what that means. I'm now
well, I think that's a little bit like the Light Harbor map we did for Noble Dwarf, right? It wasn't steampunk, but it was industrial, like the gnomes and stuff with industrial machines and steam, that type of thing. So there's like technology or whatever they used to say from a goblin perspective, but
like Eberron.
Well, yeah, but Eberron was high magic, man. But yes.
Okay. But
Princess goes, yeah, Light Harbor. Light Harbor was it was industrial. It was almost like, you got Edwardian and Georgian houses. It's 17th, 18th century, but it's fantasy.
Yeah. I'm not Steam and Steel. Yeah, it's one of I've never run in anything like that, and I've never played in anything like that. But I don't have any issues with that personally. So, yeah, I guess I'm down for it. It'd be one of those things where if I was ever playing in a game like that, I would certainly hope the GM would run it well, and it would be kind of interesting to read the campaign setting as I'm trying to create some characters for it. If I was going to run it, I'd obviously have to look into kind of the whole Arcanotech is Eberron. Nice. Good name. But yeah. It's kind of, I never like to be bolted down too much when it comes to a fantasy campaign or fantasy worlds. Alyssa was alluding to earlier the world that we still run to this day, the one that spawned off of that Shogun campaign that she did all those years ago. It's one of those things where I've never liked to be kind of bolted down with one style that has to be across the entire globe of that fantasy setting. And she and I have had many discussions about this fantasy world. And sure enough, in this fantasy world, there's actually a country that had a lot of almost like, I don't know if I would go so far as to call it steampunk, but it was kind of like a fantasy punk.
I think it was the Arcanotech that everyone's talking about, right?
Exactly. I mean, they had airships, and they had more. I don't know if I would use the term robotic, but they had mechanical things that would do things for you. Arcanotech, like Eberron. That one country in this entire world was kind of like that. But at the same time, you also had countries that were basically like if Conan the Barbarian and Mad Max had a baby in the fantasy realm, in the Conan realm of things. So it was like, and then you had an area that was kind of like, it was almost like Vikings meets the North in Game of Thrones, where it was like ice, but freaking Vikings, you know? So it really depended on, it kind of depended on where you were in the world, and technology would change, magic would change. One could argue it had something to do with maybe, you know, the ley lines of the world, or cracks and fissures and the other between, you know, what had happened in the cataclysm.
So I'm gonna start bringing this stream to its ending moments. But and this time has really gone quickly.
I really feel like we've started.
We literally just have started, and actually in many ways we have just started. So each Monday Jack is going to join us, and right now I'm throwing questions at him, and we're all learning a little bit about Jack, and we're just talking amongst ourselves, like about our favorite games and our favorite characters and stuff. We're all learning a little bit about each other. What I love about this is we're going to continue this for the next few weeks, and then we're going to start actually talking about other things, other topics, and maybe spawn from this, GMing techniques and so on and so forth, and we're going to do it with Jack. It's almost like gaming with Jack, or nerddom with Jack.
Well,
We've got to come up with a name for this, right, Jack?
yeah.
So, in that vein, please know that each Monday Jack is going to join us. We're going to all hang out together. We're going to have this type of rapport. If you've got questions for Jack, or just questions in general that you think would be cool, and Princess, you've been great tonight, just throwing out some awesome ones. Save them up, write them down, and next Monday we're going to rejoin Jack, and we're going to do more of the same, okay? If there are any last minute questions that you want to throw at him, do it right now. We'll do maybe one or two more questions, and then we're going to wrap, okay, for the evening.
Jackman do inquests.
Jackman do inquests, yes, okay.
So apparently that, hello my baby, hello my honey, that frog, apparently he actually has a name. It's Michigan J. Frog. That's his name.
I did not know that. I wonder if they actually knew that when they created him.
Probably not, because he was, as it says here, he was initially intended to be a one-shot character in One Froggy Evening.
I thought it was One Foggy Night. Is it One Foggy Evening?
Yeah, that's One Froggy Evening is the name. December 31st, 1955. Holy smokes.
That's an old one. Alright. So this is where we're at tonight, by the way, with the mapping. I was just drawing roofs while Jack and I were talking. We've actually got all of the roofs done on the west side, which is more than I thought we were going to get done. So tomorrow night we will easily do the roofs on the east side, and then we're just going to start drawing the background texture. And the background texture, by the way, is the difference between this and this. It is untextured, just white. There's a lot of white space, and balancing that white space with a little bit of bushes and trees and vegetables and rocks is a huge difference. So maybe we're a little bit ahead of the curve right now. Who knows? So tomorrow night we're back. We're going to work on this a little bit more. Jack, thank you. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you every Monday. We're just us talking nerdy shit.
Down. I'm down. You know, funnily enough, I know you had mentioned you were going to talk about what movies I was going to be watching, because Monday nights are going to be when I watch a film that I will then, for what I watched Wednesday on Facebook, I'm going to be talking about what I watched this evening on Wednesday. We didn't even talk about it, which is good, because I'm not still 100% sure.
Well, because you weren't sure, I was like, I'm not going to bring that up. But I do want to say that, so Jack is a huge movie guy. I think what will happen in some of these Mondays is we are going to talk to him about his movies. And like, he is a huge movie guy, okay? directors, producers, techniques. He's on it, and he's passionate about it. So each moon day, Jack is actually going to be going from this stream into watching a movie, and he's watching older movies, okay? And then on Wednesday, on his Facebook wall, he's going to be actually posting about that movie that he watched on the Monday. So look him up online, okay, Cinema Jack, and hit him up with a follow, because he does talk movies a lot, and if movies interest you, you're gonna like his page, okay? So do that, and who knows, maybe each Monday we'll talk a little bit about it, like, what, Jack, what are you gonna be watching tonight? And Princess, I know that interests you.
Yeah, and Princess, I do need to get more on Letterboxd. You've seen I've posted like a couple of things there, and I try to keep my watch list up to date, even though I think it's still lacking. But yeah, definitely.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, good night, everyone. I love you all. Brian, that includes you, my friend. And Alex Fiction, you never cease to amaze me with your intellect and your experience, girl. So all of you, thank you. But a big special thanks to Jack, our special guest, who's going to become part, really, of the team, right? He's not a special guest. He's a co-host. So, Jack, thank you.
You are most welcome, my dear.
All right, everyone. So from us, the world creators, creating homes, putting people in it, letting them go about their lives, and then giving them something to actually do with their lives, from me to you, I love you all. I'll see you tomorrow night. We're close to finishing this village. Maybe 2 more streams. And then onto the tower, which will be a 3D cutaway. And I'm a little bit scared. So until then, I love you all. Jack, thank you. Great stream, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow night.